Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Mahmoud Abdelkader. Hey, how you doing, Mahmoud? It's great to see you. I want to tell everybody a little bit about you because we're going to talk about a topic today that's really, really important. You are the CEO and co-founder of VeryGoodSecurity.com. You're the leading data security platform that changes the way sensitive data is held by eliminating the need for customers to hold on to their own data. What a big topic, always, but specifically today, security. Back in 1995, I started an internet company, and security was, the biggest thing. Do you have your own server in your company, and what's the security? Security today with breaches and things of that nature seems to be something that is so critical, but seems to be something that maybe people don't spend enough time really paying attention to. So let's start there. What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that every company needs to pay attention to when it comes to security?
I think, don't know. First of all, like security. Thanks so much, John, for having me here.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So look, as a company, the first thing you have to think about is, listen, if you're less than 20 people, they'll make security a blocker unless you have some kind of some mandate from some customer to be able to get SOC 2 compliance or something like that, right? Like, I think it's important for you to think about your business growth first. The second thing is, after 20 people, after you fit product market fit, you should be taking security seriously, right? It is a trust medium, right? And so what does that mean? What you should be thinking about is, like, listen, just do the basic stuff, right? Like simple, like 2-factor authentication on everything, right? Like everybody should be using some kind of single sign-on, even though, we heard about a very big vendor that just was potentially breached. But the idea is that, listen, you can't trust a perimeter anymore. The perimeter has shifted as we've gone all remote into the data, right? So how data access is being done, how data is shared across your organization, something to pay attention to if you're starting out. And if you're kind of like an existing enterprise that hasn't done that kind of governance, listen, you're going to need to get some kind of data mapping on and kind of seeing how your data flows in and out. But that's something that you can keep a track of for sure, right?
But let's talk about data mapping for a second. Is it only for the CTO to do? Is it only for, I think sometimes, people delegate so much, especially the bigger the company gets, who's responsible for actually really making sure that is flowing in the right way?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question. In fact, as we get bigger at VGS, it's really hard to kind of make sure there's alignment across the organization. And so I think it's not just a CTO concern, but it's also not a CISO concern. I think it's not like, I think it's a company, it's a board level concern, right? I think it's very important for folks to realize that, listen, how your data moves in and out of your organization is something you need to understand, right? And the easiest way to think about it is like, A, first, do you even need that data? And B, where's that data going? Where's that data coming from? Where is it going, and how is it being used? I think that kind of analysis needs to be done, and there needs to be training, very similar to how we have, harassment trainings, how we have, corporate ethics trainings, how we have lots of other trainings. I think they're not just security awareness training, because that's kind of like, oh, it's just general security principles, but hey, everybody needs to understand what is sensitive data, where is it coming from, and they need to be able to report it, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that. You talked about, do you need certain data points and do you not need certain data points? What data points can be filtered out, and what are the key data points that companies need to really be zoomed in on a daily basis?
There's no general answer to that question, I think, because the reason people store data is that they're trying to ultimately extract value from the data, right? And so the idea becomes, how you store the data, how you use the data is ultimately more of a business driver, right? And there's a business and various business decisions that are needed there. And so I think but most commonly folks do several things with data, right? They say, hey, I need this data to run a credit background, or open up a loan, or open up a background, or find a credit score, right? So data being used needs to ultimately have a purpose. And I think just collecting data, ultimately is a toxic liability. So folks just need to kind of understand what business questions do they anticipate asking, and then what business needs do they have currently, and then reevaluate it every year or so and kind of see, okay, here's what we're trying to do with the data. Here's how we're going to unlock the data value from the data, and that makes the decision whether they need to have it or retain it or delete it, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about you for a minute. You were previously the CTO and co-founder of Balance Payments, which was acquired by Stripe in 2015. So I want to talk to you, the entrepreneur, right? So we're seeing in today's world with the Great Resignation, the Big Quit, we're seeing more people who have been craving to be an entrepreneur become an entrepreneur. What advice would you give that person today in a 2022 end of Q1 world?
That's that's very I was gonna tell you some general advice, and then towards the end there you kind of threw a wrench. I think the you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to realize that the world is not predictable, and you can't plan, right? And there's this common thing we say, like, hey, if you don't plan to fail, what is it? It's like a
plan.
Failure to plan is a plan to failure, right?
Yeah.
Failure to plan is a plan to failure. And so, like, I don't think that applies to entrepreneurship. And in fact, I would say you should be planning to be like, do my assumptions hold, and what's my backup plan on that, right? And so, maybe that does matter, but I think planning is a lot different. And so you just got to be able to roll with the punches and be able to think on your on your feet, and kind of like just be resourceful. Right, you have to be resourceful, and look, it's tough. No, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy, especially now. It's even tough. It's even more tough to be able to convince folks to, like, because remember, this person left to start becoming an entrepreneur. Now they have to convince a very similar individual like themselves to not leave and join and do what they did, which start a company, but they have to convince them to come join them. So it's just it becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy where at some point, are we all just doing businesses with each other as self-entrepreneurs, right? And so does that make sense? And so the idea is like,
what's the biggest lesson you've learned in these last 2 years in regards to adapting and pivoting? That's my first question. The question 1.A is, what does your conversation sound like with the person who says, hey, I want to go start my own company? Because retention is a big thing right now.
Yeah. So listen, look, first of all, the first thing I've learned is your people are the biggest asset, right? Like, so like that means like basically as a ex CTO and now becoming a CEO with an engineering background, it was all product and engineering before, but ultimately started to realize, like, no, that's not just what the company is. Building a company is a completely different skill set. And now instead of writing programs, you have to write humans, right? Well, work with humans, and they're very unpredictable. And so the idea is like, your people are your best asset. But what that means, if you unlock that a little bit and kind of like drill into it, what that means is that you want people who think on not like you, but think without the written expectations of an outcome, right? Like, you expect, does that make sense? Like, you want to be able to be people who are like just on the same wavelength, but definitely you want diverse opinions, but you want, a diverse backgrounds, but you definitely want people who, like, you can have a conversation with and be like, I understand what you're saying. I know exactly what that looks like, and move on, right? So I don't know how to find that. You just have to kind of like work.
Right. You want to find people that are in alignment with your mission and your vision, but like you said, a diverse group of that.
Yeah. Oh, also, you want them to be on the same wavelength. Like, hey, exactly. And so that's number one. Number two, the thing I'll tell you is that, what's the pitch? What do I say? It's like, listen, a company is just it's a sum of its people, right? So if retaining folks and making sure that they have compensation is like, you have to just make sure that your offers there are very they're competitive, not only with the market, but listen, they're coming in for equity, right? You're never going to be able to match the FANG companies. So you're coming in to being like, listen, with your advice, with your help, here's how I think we can 10x, 100x where we're at right now, right? And so if people don't value that, then they're not a good fit for you. They don't belong there, right? I see candidates all the time be like, hey, where else are you interviewing? They're like, oh, a FANG and you. And I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. You can't even compare. It's just completely different environments, right?
Well, I love that comment, and and I hear what you're saying. I'd like to keep these to 10 minutes. So 2 quick speed round questions. Answer them in less than 5 seconds. Favorite book and why?
Managing Humans. It's a great one.
It sounds like a great one. I haven't heard of that one. I'm going to read it. And the best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Yeah. Trust your gut. It's what got you there in the first place.
I love it. Tell people where they can learn more about you, your business, and everything else.
Yeah, we're on Twitter at GetVGS, right? At GetVGS, and then verygoodsecurity.com, which is a play on prettygoodprivacy.com. So verygoodsecurity.com.
I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate your guidance. You know, you awakened everybody today on the importance of not only security, but also what it takes to be a secure entrepreneur. So appreciate it. Thank community. Check out verygoodsecurity.com. Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me here.